Hello, you're with Calling All Stations, and it's high time I gave you guys a layout update. I guess I haven't really been doing much on the layout throughout the summer. Most modelers sort of have modelling season, as it were, and that's because a lot of people have their layouts up in the loft or in a garage or in a place that's sort of susceptible to the weather. So in summer it's very hot, and in winter it's a bit cooler, so they can go and work on the layout. I know a lot of people that I follow on Twitter are like that, and suddenly everybody's getting back into their layouts because the temperatures come down, they're able to get back up into their space. You guys know that I don't have that problem. My layout's in my office, so I should be working on it throughout the whole year sort of solidly, right? Well, I seem to have some kind of sort of similar affliction where in the summer months I just don't get a lot done for some reason, whether I'm out enjoying the weather or something, even though those of you who know me will know that I'm not particularly massive fan of very hot weather. Maybe it's the fact that in the winter, the long winter nights are sort of more, they lend themselves to sort of spending time with your model and spending time indoors doing stuff with that. So that's how it's been, and you know how it is. You sort of get into the flow of a couple of jobs, and I got into the flow of a couple of jobs which I thought I'd share with you today. So very aware that I'm already rambling on quite a bit, but I've got a couple of jobs that I've done, a couple of jobs that I'm going to be doing soon that I want to talk about and just sort of introduce you to now. So let's go and take a look at what I've been doing on Croxley West. So welcome over to the Croxley West side of the layout, and hopefully you can see I've finally finished, or very nearly finished, the scenic area on Croxley West. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sort of set up the tripod and get the lighting right, because this is sort of, well, it's underneath the window, so it's quite difficult to sort of film this area and so that you can see some of the nice detail. So I'm going to set the tripod up and we can take a look at what I've been doing. One of the problems with the rest of the Woodford Wells layout is it's very busy. There's a lot going on in it. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of track work, and very little space for additional scenic interest. Yes, there's the overbridge and the parcel depot, but that's about it. There's not a lot of extra space for sort of green and open spaces. That's what I wanted to achieve with Croxley West, is to go the opposite way and have a bit more of an open space. And I've achieved that with the sort of, I don't know, the little forest, the little area of trees behind the station, and I wanted to extend that beyond to the front of the platform here as well. Now, a lot of people told me to think about what this area would have been when I was thinking about and asking questions about what should this area be. And a lot of people told me to think about, well, what would be the history for Croxley West? It's a terminus branch line. Was the line ever intended to go further? Was there ever a depot here? Was there ever sort of a yard? Maybe there was a second platform, all those kind of things. So I basically wanted to take that on board and sort of mimic real life stations, things like Mill Hill East and Chesham, which are now single track branch lines, but they definitely had more track work in their history. I mean, look at Chesham, that had sort of a runaround loop, it had a signal box, had all sorts of extra things at Chesham that are now not there. But if you go there, there's still this sort of open space where there's not a lot going on. So I wanted to sort of replicate that. So maybe there was once a runaround loop, there was maybe once a yard, something else in this space that now has turned it into a bit of a wasteland, a little bit desolate and a bit unused, and I wanted to create that effect. So to achieve that, I added in this sort of gravel path. Now this is exactly the same grey ballast that I had left over from the rest of the Woodford Wells layout, so it was good to reuse some of that. Now it could either be a gravel path or it could be a former track bed. There's a little bit of ambiguity in this to sort of help you ask questions of what this possibly would have been. Then I added in a sort of blend of brown scatter, and you'll see some of the rest of the brown scatter in an area that I haven't quite finished yet, coming up shortly. Added in a blend of the brown for the rest to sort of have a base colour underneath all this sort of grass, and then on top of it added in static grass, or an attempt at static grass anyway. I wasn't very happy with it initially. I think I was looking a little bit too much at some of the really experienced models on YouTube. We're talking sort of Everard Junction and Dean Park, who when they do static grass, it looks absolutely amazing. And I did want to create that kind of overgrown effect, and to start with it just looked really messy and I wasn't quite happy with it. But then I started adding in these little tufts of pre-made static grass, and actually it started to tie the area together quite well, and it does look quite overgrown and tired and sort of neglected, and that's exactly the effect that I was going for. The other thing I've done is these two little piles of ballast. So I've got a grey pile. This is obviously sort of the same colour as the path or former track bed. So maybe this was an older area of track and an older pile of ballast, therefore. The colour here is more in keeping with the rest of Croxley West and the rest of the track bed. So perhaps this is a slightly newer pile of ballast that was left over whenever Croxley West was last reballasted. So just a couple of piles, and I've got another one down the end there if we have a look. Another pile of sort of modern coloured ballast, if you will. Before I started doing static grass, I glued down a couple of really long pieces of rail, coloured them obviously in a rust colour, and then put the static grass on top. And I did watch Everard Junction do this, and he glued a lot of the sort of rusty bits of junk down before he did the static grass, and it really does create the effect that it's overgrown and sort of lost in time. And I've done the same sort of thing with this pile of sleepers here and a couple of additional abandoned pieces of rails, and this pile of sleepers, which I just coloured, by the way, in, I think it's sleeper grime colour, and an additional bit of black weathering, I think, that you can see there. So yes, I've finally wired in the 3 Croxley West platform lights. This is a job I've been putting off for absolutely months. They were installed about 5 or 6 months ago, and I've only just got round to ordering the DCC to DC little converter board for them to wire them in, and it was basically just a case of ordering the board, and I've been sort of kind of putting off ordering it because I know I would have had to wire them in. And the reason why I put it off is because I really hate fiddly wiring jobs, primarily because, and this is another one of the this is basically another one of the lights that I had spare. Basically the wire they give you, and I'm going to try and make the camera focus on it, there we go, the wire that they give you with these lights is so always ridiculously thin. I mean, these ones aren't so bad, the Burco ones, and I think I've talked about it before, they're literally just one strand, which means it's much harder to wire those directly into things like screw terminals, because they're just, the connections are a little bit more unreliable, and I find they always pop out, and if you're doing work underneath the layout they always sort of come loose. So I tend to find that I have to directly solder these to another piece of wire and then connect them to screw terminals. It's just my way of getting around it, but it's a fiddly and slightly laborious process, so I always kind of put off fiddly wiring jobs like that. But as you can see, it looks rather nice and it does look rather complete. If you bear with me, I'll just go and turn down the house lights and we'll see what it looks in a bit more of the dark. So that's mostly all I've been doing on Croxley West and on the layout. There are a few bits to finish off, one of which is over there where I was talking about the brown scatter. That's basically what's underneath all the static grass, is that brown scatter over there. I've still got to finish that area. I may go heavier or lighter on the static grass and the sort of abandoned feel. That's still very much part of the working railway, so maybe a few more maintenance cabinets, a few bits of tools and stuff will be over there, but otherwise just another bit of green space which I do need to finish. The next area I need to concentrate on is above the tunnel mouth over here. Now I'm sort of umming and ahhing what to do with this because I still need access to the track behind for maintenance, for cleaning, sorting out derailments should they occur. However, I do want to cover up the rest of the tunnel because you can sort of peer in and see trains sort of running through, and I do want to create the effect that this is more of a tunnel rather than a bridge. So I do want to hide some of this area, so I'm thinking decking this over and then maybe having some kind of scenic area on top, or not, or I could just leave it and literally store things on top of it. That's a possibility as well. Problem with that is this this bit of backboard that pops out from the rest of Woodford Wells. Now, do I truncate that by cutting here and just having the retaining wall, allowing you to peer into the rest of the scenic area, so it will actually be a sort of an extension of the scenic area from Woodford Wells, which may or may not work, given the fact that this is definitely one area of suburban London, and this is definitely another area of suburban, or even sort of out into the rural countryside. So will that make that sort of transition look a little bit odd? So do I truncate this or do I not truncate this and have this as a completely separate area divided by something? Maybe a wall, maybe I do scenery on the other side. Not decided, but that's one area I've got to work on and really finish. It's been like that since I constructed it, and it's literally gone no further. This piece of cardboard will be replaced by probably just a straight down flat piece of wood, similar to that on the bridge, just a straight down, that's the end of the layout, cut it off there. Or I could maybe perhaps landscape it into the tunnel there, but I think it would just be easier to truncate that, deck it over, and then maybe add in a little bit of a hill or kind of shape the scenery. But that's certainly one area I've got to work on. My next upcoming project, and this is probably going to take the majority of my time, is some of you will have noticed on Twitter I talked about this area in front of the layout, the rest of this cupboard, the extension of this cupboard. I was talking, should I extend the layout forward, create something on a slightly shallower level? Should I even create a new mini layout? But I was thinking about some of the responses. Some people just said, no, you're obviously using it to kind of store tools and to keep your test track in front. I thought, actually, to be honest, that's a good idea. I'm going to keep that. The other reason I'm going to keep the test track here is I'm going to extend it because I've just bought one of these, and I'm going to flash it up on the screen now. It is a block detection unit, which I know, and I've seen videos of it working with the Z21, which will allow me to do block detection. Now, I know originally I wanted to avoid doing that because it would involve isolating sections of the track. But it's just been an itch that I need to scratch, is to sort out some kind of basic automation. And what I'm thinking of doing is something very simple to start with, and I want to automate a shuttle between Woodford Wells and Croxley West. Now, we'll need to maybe isolate platform 1 by cutting a little cut in one of the rails, and you don't have to isolate both sections. You actually, for DCC, I'll talk about this all later in a future video, you just need to cut one of the rails, and that isolates and helps the decoder detect where trains are. I think I may only need to do that twice, once in Woodford Wells platform 1, once in Croxley West initially, and that should enable me to do a simple shuttle. But to start with, what I'm going to do before I go wrecking Woodford Wells and before I go doing cuts to track, all that kind of stuff, and doing wiring underneath, which I said was fiddly and annoying, I'm going to create an extended test track in front of the layout here. Probably not going to run the whole length of the cupboards there. I've already got left over in there, I've got one full length of flexi track, which should be enough. So it's probably just going to be the length of half of one of these cupboards, and that will enable me to test out the block detection and to have a sort of simple block detection on one line going back and forward, test it, get it working, figure out how all that works and programs, and then move that on to Woodford Wells. So that's going to take up a lot of my time, is when I get this thing through the post, figuring out how it works, wiring up a test track, getting a simple shuttle working, and then once I've done that, going over to Woodford Wells, Croxley West, and getting some kind of layout automation in. Basically, it's just an itch that I've just can't scratch at the moment. It's something that I've just wanted to set up for a long time. It's got to that point where I'm like, I need to do a big project on the layout. I need to do something big. And I was thinking, can I extend it? Can I sort of deck over the fiddle yard and maybe do something on top there? Do I change this area and maybe have some kind of working line curving that way? Maybe I extend the layout forward. All of those ideas seemed a little bit mad, and I thought, no, you know what, let's order one of these block detection units. They are sort of mediumly expensive, I think about £57, but it will enable me to learn the next stage of sort of DCC operation, and that should keep me occupied and keep me busy long enough so that I don't get the itch to do anything too mad extension wise or to the layout. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing in the future, is that section over there and building a test track for some basic DCC automation, with the hope that I can enable that on Woodford wells. Okay guys, that's enough I think from me for this episode. Don't forget to go and check out some of my other videos that I've done. I was really happy with the sort of mini documentary that I did on the Isle of Wight. That's obviously what I was doing in summer. Really enjoyed making that and really enjoyed putting that together and filming that and everything. So do go and check that out. The comments have been really great. Also go and check out the Hidden London Abandoned Euston tour that I did recently. It's only a short video, but it gives you an idea of what some of the hidden areas of the London Underground are like. Do go and check that out. As always, subscribe, like, give us a comment, give us a retweet. All that stuff is great, and I do look forward to hearing from you. So guys, I will see you sometime soon.